It's Friday night, and as promised, I wanted to start this like sort of end of the week thing, depending on how many comments there are. I mentioned that there are folks who listen to YouTube when they're driving around or doing things at home, and so to accommodate that, and the fact that, I can find comments because I can go on my dashboard for my channel, and even then, I find things in my email that aren't in the comment part of the dashboard. I find things on YouTube in the dashboard that aren't in my email, and they should be in both. So not sure what's happening there, but to remedy that, I'm going to tell you about which video the comments go with, and then just read them and read any responses. And we'll see how it goes. If it's annoying or becomes too much, I think what will happen is, because I'm probably going to tonight do the last 2 weeks, it'll be more, but really the comments are few and far between. And of course, this past week I've really only, I think, did 2 small videos, and so I plan to have a weekend of getting some content out on all the platforms, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm rested and ready, had the day off from work, which is amazing, and I did record already, but what happened was I should have saved it, played a portion of it, but I have this little mixer. It's just a little one. You just stick the microphone thing into it. There's lines in, lines out. I can control the volume on various things, and there's a voice changer on it, which I did not get it for that. So while I was hitting some of the buttons, I must have hit that one by mistake, and so it recorded me as sounding like a very, very deep male voice.
And I just went ahead and gave you a sample anyway. This is what it sounded like.
So we're going to go at this again, and thanks. Oh, and I wanted to thank everyone, not only for writing or texting, calling, hitting me up on Facebook, all the different things that you're using and that you're finding a way to either say, hi, this is me, this is so-and-so, or hi, I really don't feel comfortable telling you who I am, but here's my story. And some people have left comments, and it's not easy to tell who they are, and others, their name is right in there. So I know it's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to put yourself out there. So I really appreciate it. I appreciate every single person who has shared a part of their experience in NTCC. And of course, it's always going to be varied. But if you look over time, and we do have a couple people here who have been commenting, who go back to the one in particular, let's mention Vic Johansson, goes back to the St. Louis days when that's where the Bible school was, like at the beginnings. And so their experiences are just invaluable to me, and should be to everyone, because when you see that the same things have kept going on, so there's all these distractions of, well, this has changed and that has changed and this has changed a little bit, but the main things, the reasons why I'm compelled to warn and expose about this group, are still in place. So let's go ahead and have at this. And as always, any feedback, anything you want to share, either publicly or privately, please do so. Have an amazing weekend. Bye. Well, not bye, I'm still here. I'm just closing out that intro portion. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and begin this. And I'm not going to do this in any sort of chronological order. Ain't nobody got time for that. I surely don't. So I ain't gonna do it. This first one here is that I have, and it's just in a random list anyway on my dashboard on YouTube. It's under the Holiness Hair in New Testament Christian Church video. Someone wrote, "Love your channel. I ran away from NTCC in 2008." And this is from 2 days ago. I asked the person, "Are you able to share what tipped the balance in favor of leaving? Thanks for stopping by." Under the video, this is 4 days ago, from Infausto showing how indoctrination happens in NTCC. This gentleman wrote, "Infausto was my pastor in Sacramento. He baptized me. Brother Adams, Brother Hank, and I would go over to his house on a regular basis to fellowship. I looked up to that man, but after I went to Bible college, I could never get more than a few words out of him when I saw him in Graham or at the campground. I didn't understand until later, after I'd left the church, that he didn't care two figs for me. Didn't surprise me later when he became a board member." Now, for many of us, I mean, I normally will say things like, didn't give a lick about him, or didn't do squat, whatever. But this one, who about giving two figs, I had to look it up. And it's actually it's a phrase in a poem called "The White Troops Had Their Orders." And the question is asked, who really gave two figs? And it means exactly what it sounds like in context. So thank you, John, for that, for causing me to go research something that I did not know. I responded to him by saying, "I'm sorry it went down like that for you. You aren't the first one who's shared a similar testimony of his behavior." And on that same day, Vic Johansson wrote, "R.W. Davis once publicly stated that if anyone on his lick-spittle board..." Oh, yikes, here we go. Okay, so we're learning stuff here. Here's the thing. You can read either of those phrases. Who gives two figs, or "you didn't give two figs for me." Lick-spittle board. Now, honestly, because he didn't capitalize board, it threw me up. It threw me off. Threw me up. That's like in a category with YouTube Shorts. But you get the context. You don't have to know it. But for me, I have to know it. I have to know what it means. I wanted to make sure that I said it correctly. So he's saying lick-spittle board, meaning board members, that kind of board, not that he has a board that he's licked his spittle on. But other words or phrases that are similar are apple polisher, bootlicker, brown noser, flunky, fawner, suck up, sycophant, toady. All really good words. So let's keep going here. You can be rest assured that if you read something by that Vic Johansson has written, even if you think you know words and grammar, you're going to learn some more. So let's start this again. R.W. Davis once publicly stated that if anyone on his lick-spittle board was prone to disagreeing with his agenda, he'd get rid of him. That's not something he ever needed to worry about with bootlicker Jerry. Surprised his nose isn't permanently stained dung brown by now. He'll throw his friends under the bus in an instant if that's what it takes to curry favor with the overlords. I wonder where he got that false report he propagated about me. Undoubtedly from one of his masters, who have no restraint when it comes to trying to destroy others with dirty lies to protect their empire of grift and domination. It's common for those who succeed as NTCC sycophants to ditch former friends once they've arrived. Mike Keckle and I lived in the same room once, but after he married royalty, his circle became far too rarefied for mere commoners, and I was snubbed in short order. How a person wields power says more about character than anything else, and can reveal which friends are real. At least now I know whose dust to shake off my feet. I mean, I cannot add to that one bit. Under the same, under that same video about Infausto, Vic also wrote, "I'm proud to be marked and avoided by this guy who I knew when we were still GIs in Tillicum, and who spread false rumors about me, telling Jesus Rodriguez that after we left the org, we fell on hard times and had our house in Alaska foreclosed. That would be the house we paid off, and from which I'm posting this comment, by the way, since our financial situation improved immediately once we were parasite free. It's NTCC that wrote the book on causing divisions, and avoiding it is excellent advice." 5 days ago, someone wrote in response to NTCC The Last Hope, which is a short video. This person wrote, "Once again, it's the arrogance of NTCC, acting as though they are better than other churches. That is why so many visitors did not come back. I've heard this so many times." That Mike Keckel is just, and if you look at his videos, you can see why. If you're someone who comes for something spiritual, you are really not going to get it. Not when he's preaching. I wrote, to read the description, a bit more info is included there. You click on the 3 little dots under the share button. Thanks for watching. Because it's not evident if you're looking at a short where you look to find the description, so you might not even know it was there. I didn't know they were there. I've seen lots of shorts, but I gotta find another phrase other than shorts. But it wasn't until I created them that I realized, ooh, that's not easy to know where those are. 8 days ago, under the video, "When will NTCC make good on their bylaws?" Article 2, under purpose. And Vic wrote, and this one I would love to pursue further, this particular subject. But he wrote, "There was a Philippine scandal when the headquarters was still in St. Louis. I can't remember the guy's name at the moment, but a Filipino minister R.W. knew from his time as a missionary, had some kind of administrative position in the Bible school over there, was accused of embezzling organization money. I remember that previous to that, they'd shipped him and a rich Chinese businessman that was evidently furnishing financial support from the Philippines for a conference. R.W. showed us a newspaper clipping indicating he'd been found guilty and claimed that this had created such a financial setback for the org that the orphanage they planned on opening the next year," and in parentheses he wrote, "which we'd never heard of until then," close parentheses, "was now on hold. Been holding ever since, apparently." Okay, under how does NTCC deal with cigarette smokers who claim to be saved? 8 days ago, Vic wrote, "I was at that Tillicum service when Phil prayed through. His brother and I were, and still are, best friends. I don't remember him firing up the smoke, but I've heard him tell the story many times. He was only 17 and got shipped straight to Bible college in St. Louis. Well, he actually detoured home to New Hampshire first to collect his stuff. I fronted his brother the money to go with him and guard his soul against second thoughts while he was away from any direct influence." It's sort of like when Keckel mentioned not wanting to go home after he got out of the military. He might become entangled. That is a thing. They don't want you. They want you coming to Bible school as fast as possible. And I can attest to that in my own situation when I got out of the Air Force. Let's pick up here. He said, We were always paranoid that way. So I feel for Phil. He got married into the royalty and swept into a role before he'd had a chance to even know what was going on. We lived together in St. Louis and were very close. I hated to lose that relationship. Once I visited him post departure when his brother and I were passing through. It went well on the surface, in parentheses, I suppose because their parents were in town visiting, precluding an ugly scene, and then continuing. But I was subsequently informed that it had been a mistake that shouldn't be made again. And my apologies to those who are listening, but I have included here 3 screenshots from FactNet. It was under a thread entitled Loved Ones, and Vic had posted the letter that Kinson had sent after they had this visit. So it was Vic Johansson and Chris Kinson, who is Phil's brother. They came through, called, and I believe all the details are here in the screenshots. If they're not, I will include what I know, or just leave it as it is, really. I do want to just stick to the comments, but since Vic had made me aware that this was posted on FactNet, I thought I would go ahead and share this as well. And so with these, I've made each of these 3 screenshots at least 30 seconds long, but I doubt you'll read it in that quick time. But if you don't, just pause the video. There you go. Solutions. And now we'll continue with Vic's comment. That was hurtful but unsurprising, given the level of mind control involved. I still miss these guys on some level. I even miss the good side of Keckle. He does have one, although his Jungian shadow seems to predominate. And then under the video, Kinson says Jeff Malone was called to preach. About 8 days ago, Vic wrote, I recall Malone being shamed from the pulpit regularly by RWD, or Roger W. Davis, for letting Cleveland, I think it was some Ohio city, he says, die and go to hell while he fiddled around getting ready to fulfill his, quote, call, unquote, there. At the same time, we were being taught by him not to go out and try to pioneer a work with less than $5,000 in cash. So he was obeying and disobeying at the same time. I can't remember if he ever did make it to Cleveland, or if they're still doomed like Nineveh. My only memories are of him ensconced in Graham. Our sons were friends and playmates, and we were both church musicians. I've always liked Jeff, but they've used him as a tool. Some of the best people I know are still in thrall. Thrall. So under the video short, quote number 1 from R.W. Davis, founder of New Testament Christian Church. It looks like it's the young man who was, I don't know if he's still a preacher in NTCC. I've not seen him around in any of the videos. His last name is Burt. This is from 10 days ago, and he wrote, strange comment, Jesus had Judas among his 12 disciples. Jesus himself sat among publicans and sinners. In that particular video, Keckle is in Arizona, and he's talking about some guy who only showed up because he was there, which, you know, again, don't know the other half of it. He could be an evil person. I don't know. But the thing is that what this young man, Brother Burt, said is Jesus sat with publicans and sinners. And for some reason, Keckle did not see that as an opportunity to maybe make a difference in that person's life, since he deemed them to be, not worthy of that time or effort. Under that, 10 days ago, for the conditional offering from an NTCC pastor, that one I received a lot of texts, calls, and emails about Denton down in Lakeland, Florida. And this person wrote, how to say you are a business without saying you are a business. Under that same video, this started a lot of back and forth. I think there's maybe 27 comments under this one, or maybe it's a different one, but from this same person. It was 10 days ago, and this person at F. Tony Productions, and whenever anyone, I've mentioned this before, posts something, I go to look to see if there's any sign that they are a real person. Did they just start a YouTube page, or have they had one? This person has a bona fide business, seemingly based in or around the Bremerton area. And so I kept that in mind as I read his comments. And so he says, in response to your question at 13 minutes 38 seconds in the video, he gave a bunch of scriptures. I think my question was about the biblicality of it all, concerning forcing people to be guilty, to have their faith dedication questioned because they don't come to what everybody calls the house of the Lord. Because wherever these people are gathered, right, is the church. That's them, is the people. It's not a building. I don't think it ever has been. But anyway, he makes reference to Psalm 122:1. I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. In Hebrews, it's encouraged not to forsake the assembling of ourselves together, suggesting the importance of communal worship. He's listing all this for me. Psalm 84:10, for a day in thy courts is better than 1,000. I had rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of wickedness. Matthew 21. Jesus refers to the temple as my house, calling it a house of prayer. The temple, he referred to the temple. Acts 2:46-47. Early Christians met daily in the temple courts and shared meals at home, showing that communal worship was important. Ephesians, Paul describes the Christian community as a household of God, built upon the foundation of apostles and prophets. 1 Timothy, Paul refers to the house of God as the church of the living God. Okay, so there you go. Now, mind you, this whole video was about this pastor, the man looking over the souls, supposedly, of these people, saying how God had put it on his heart to give money to a family, couple, whatever they are. And he just lays out their whole situation, which it seems like whoever's there in the group knows about. And he's streaming this live and saying they didn't show up for church, so they're not getting the money. I'm keeping it. And so Monica, my friend Monica, wrote, this is so wrong in so many ways. She's referring to the video, not F. Tony Productions. I started praying for these people in the congregation. Lord, please get these people out of this church. Direct them to a God-loving church. The spirit behind his attitude is straight from the pit of hell. Why would a preacher treat people this way? It's sickening. There's just so much here that's not good. I wrote back to her, it grieved both me and my daughter. I'm with you on this. There's so much here, and it's the type of people NTCC sends out to infiltrate cities. I really hope this message alone has the few folks in that room rethinking things. So I replied to F. Tony and said, I appreciate you posting the scriptures that NTCC uses to strong-arm their followers into subjection. There's not one verse there in context which required Christians, early or otherwise, to show up each and every time the doors were opened or their faith and dedication were called into question and blessings taken away. It is a nice try, though. It says not to forsake, doesn't say how often that is. NTCC believes it is by inviting people to their buildings that they've actually been involved in soul winning. Invitation is not soul winning, but NTCC does not believe in the original method. They need people in the building giving money so they can pay the mortgage and rent on the buildings. Forcing people to flow into a building at the times prescribed by the self-professed man of God is not a thing. It's not. And those verses of scripture above have nothing to do with that. Telling Bible school students and local church members and service members in the creepy communal servicemen's homes that they have to fulfill all sorts of attendance requirements in order to be right with God, and to presume once a soul steps over the threshold of one of their buildings that it's the place they are to remain for life is simply church extremism. Change my mind. I also added for him, also at F. Tony Productions, I do find it interesting that you didn't respond to what this man did as a so-called pastor of souls in Christ's name. Does it bother you in even the slightest way? So he wrote back, thank you for your insightful comments. Your perspective is a valuable one, especially for someone like me who is actively participating in the church community and finding it enriching. Our views diverge, but that's okay. It's part of what makes conversations like this one so essential. Your criticisms are mainly around control and financial motives. Do you have concrete evidence to support this? Perhaps, lost my place. Perhaps internal communications or audio recordings that indicate a priority on money over spiritual well-being. I'm going to say this to him, but dude, all the videos, man. Oh, goodness. It's interesting you mentioned church extremism. Let me share a small story. And I'm sorry to put you guys through this, but I'm reading it. Imagine a woman who once lived in a small village that had a well-known and respected bakery. She worked there briefly, but over time she found the head baker's recipes old-fashioned and somewhat rigid. You can already see where he's going and does not apply. Eventually she moved away, but kept an eye on the bakery from a distance, sharing her concerns with others. After many years, the bakery went through a series of changes, improving its recipes and modernizing its approach. Ooh, he thinks it's modernization. I think NTCC's been preaching against that. The villagers who visited found sustenance and community. Those who'd left before, watching from afar, saw only shadows of the past, not the nuanced changes that had transformed the bakery into a much improved version of itself. To come back to our discussion, regular fellowship through attendance at services is considered essential for personal growth and community building in many faiths, not just ours. I understand the text in Hebrews is subject to interpretation, but wouldn't you agree that gathering frequently as a community helps people grow spiritually and maintain a sense of unity? And in case I didn't mention it, which I'm pretty sure I did, what he's saying here, I can agree, gathering frequently, but who decides frequently? In NTCC, the individual does not get to decide frequency. The pastor, the organization, they decide. And you do not have to take my word for it. Go watch videos, I'm telling you. Watch them all day long, you'll be shocked. Again, I'm not negating your experience or emotions. I'm just trying to square them with my current positive experience, which includes significant personal and spiritual growth. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. So I wrote back, Mr. Tony, I can't respond now. Early work day for me. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. I do take issue with how you've reduced my issues, in quotes, down to 2. I clearly need to do something about that. Either that or you've not read or watched or listened to all platforms of mine and all info. I find that somewhat insulting on behalf of the precious people who've been harmed by this group through the decades. Thank you. Okay, and then he responds back, Thank you for taking the time to reply. Apologize if it seemed like I was minimizing your concern that my. Blah. Let's start over. Thank you for taking time. You know what I need to do? I already have my laptop going to a, what do you call it, a monitor to make it bigger. But now I have to zoom in to make it bigger. Okay, let's start this again from F. Tony Productions. Thank you for taking the time to reply. Apologize if it seemed like I was minimizing your concerns. That was not my intention. However, I do want to share that my personal journey with NTCC has been quite different from the picture you paint. I've seen tremendous growth in my spiritual life, met incredible people, and have felt overwhelmingly positive about my time here. In fact, the atmosphere within NTCC reminds me of a gardener I once knew. I'm sorry. I get the feeling if you're around Tony for any length of time, he's going to pull out illustrations. She had a plot of land that appeared barren and untamed to others. However, she saw the potential for growth and beauty. With time, the right tools, and dedication, that barren plot turned into a flourishing garden, teeming with life and color. Even when weeds appeared, she didn't blame the soil. Or abandon the garden. She took it upon herself to maintain the beauty she had helped to create. Like that garden, my experience at NTCC has been one of cultivation and growth. I do understand that some gardens may harbor weeds, but it's also possible that what one person sees as a weed, another may see a flower. Sometimes perspectives differ based on personal experiences. It's true I haven't consumed all the content you've produced on this topic, but I wonder if that's necessary to ask for a more balanced viewpoint. I don't dismiss your concerns, but maybe, just maybe, the narrative could also include some of the more recent positives that people like myself have experienced. And somebody called at Christian Health and Wellness wrote back to Tony and said, "It's good you're having a positive experience, yet that doesn't mean NTCC is the only way to get to heaven. Maybe they have changed in some ways, and by what is shared on this channel, they haven't changed in other ways. Yes, gathering with other Christians has benefits, but it is not required to be saved or to go to heaven. I say this in the context of, if a person cannot find a group of people or church they agree with, they are still able to worship God, be right with God, do His will, and go to heaven. Jesus didn't tell everyone to follow Him or start going to the temple. To some He said to go back to your village and tell them about me." Another angle to this discussion is, in Revelation, there's something in error with every church that is mentioned. I suppose this is natural since they are operated by humans. Though NTCC doesn't have the perfect error-free teaching like they claim, even Paul said some preach Christ for the wrong reasons, yet he rejoices that Christ is preached. A lot of what this preacher said in the video is completely unscriptural and not Christ-like at all. And then from F. Tony, he addresses at Christian Health and Wellness and says, "Thank you for your thoughtful response. I completely agree that salvation and a personal relationship with God aren't solely dependent on church attendance. It's an individual journey of faith, first and foremost. However, I do believe that being part of a community of believers enhances one's spiritual growth and understanding, much like a language is best learned, not just through individual study, but through conversation and immersion. Jesus did indeed meet people where they were at and gave them varied instructions based on their needs. Yet his ministry also emphasized community. For example, in Matthew 18, he says, 'For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them.' This suggests there's something uniquely beneficial about corporate worship. As for the churches in Revelation, you're correct that each had its strengths and weaknesses. I think that's a poignant reminder that no earthly institution will be perfect. They are, after all, run by imperfect humans. However, it's worth noting that those letters in Revelation were also calls to change and improve, indicating that communities of faith should always be in a process of self-examination and betterment. Paul's message in Philippians 1 also resonates with me. Like him, I believe that the core message of Christ is what truly matters, even if the messengers are flawed. In my experience, NTCC has been instrumental in helping me understand God's Word and live it out despite its imperfections. He means NTC's imperfections. So that's what they're being called. So while NTCC, or any church for that matter, may not have perfect, error-free teaching, it has been a nurturing environment for my faith. I responded, do you realize that I started out as you have described for over 17 years? May I ask if you saw the question I asked you after your initial question, which was, what were his thoughts about what this preacher did in this video, what he said? Also, I asked him, is NTCC your first Christian church experience? I see that young Cardenas and Gandhi follow you on Instagram. I'm assuming you primarily attend the Bremerton location. You are big into corny illustrations, I see, LOL. I would caution against doing that too much in response to over 50 years of abuse by this group. To reduce the mountain of indictments against them to that, well, it makes me wonder how serious you are to learn truths. 2 other questions. How did you find my stuff? And is anyone in NTCC helping you with your responses in any way? I don't ask that last question in a negative way, and I would expect you to consult with your leader. But I get a sense you will answer honestly, or you may choose not to answer my questions. And then wrote, most other churches will not shun you if you leave and encourage your loved one and spouse to do the same. Divorces and remarriages within this group might outpace society. It's like musical chairs in there. 9 days ago, I wrote to Christian Health and Wellness, who also responded to Mr. Tony. Here's how normal it is for NTCC to not only believe if you are in their group, then that is where God wants you, as G. Denton said in the video, and as the very founder himself and his son-in-law Keckle have nauseatingly preached for decades. My daughter and I about fell out of our chairs when we heard him Fausto in a service on Sunday allow for the fact that NTCC is not the only church. I received messages as a result that were along these lines. Do you think Fausto is getting ready to jump ship? My response was, that was the first thing that went through my mind, because it's that unheard of from the top down. All right, let's show more replies. Okay, then I did not see this one. See that? This is interesting. 9 days ago, Vic Johansson answered Mr. Tony and said, or at F. Tony Productions, if credible, meaningful change has occurred, where is the admission of past guilt? That is a big question for me. For me, what you've done to people publicly should be apologized for and repented of publicly. We were supposed to simultaneously believe that R.W. Davis was literally an apostle sent from God, who regularly stated he didn't sin and couldn't even remember the last time he had, and was so beyond reproach, no changes could ever be rightfully contemplated. But that NTCC is now new and improved and all the old bad stuff isn't happening anymore? Which is it? How many people whose lives were ravaged by this cult have been contacted with apologies and restitution for the absolute abuse and maltreatment they received, often for many years? I don't know of any, and that's probably because none exist. Hell hasn't frozen over yet, though, so maybe some phones will start ringing someday. Every pastor and worker knows what the priorities are because they have to fill out a weekly report that consists of just a few mandatory items: amount of money collected, number of people in attendance, how many prayed for salvation, and how many were filled with the Holy Ghost, plus a check for their cut of your blood, sweat, and tears. That's it. 2 metrics of NTCC success: money and numbers. We were never asked to remark on the spiritual condition of the congregation, in parentheses, unless we want to count the final two completely superficial and virtually meaningless statistics, or ourselves. The relentless focus was on bolstering, quote, the, quote, program of God, unquote, by sucking in souls and cash and funneling them to Graham. One reason they go to these regional conferences and conduct revivals is to poach faithful members from pastors they think might be hoarding them and their tithes. They'll come and implant the call of God, hypnotic suggestion in sincere people who have no idea of the hideous reality their smooth words conceal, and who will show up and painfully learn for themselves. It usually takes years to disentangle. Beware. You've been duped. Go to the seminary, get fully brainwashed, toil in the ministry, and observe them for a decade or two, and then come back when you know what you're talking about. And for your information, the necessary changes to this half bakery wouldn't be nuanced. They'd need to involve a wrecking ball and dynamite. That is absolutely, absolutely true. Somebody called, I hadn't seen this one either. DWGASG wrote, if God told you to give it to them, he's talking to that pastor in Florida, you want to be blessed, then give it to them no matter if they came to church or not. I think that's most people's thoughts on that one. All right, so here we go. After that one is 8 days ago. It's Tony. Mr. Tony is responding to me. Your commitment to seeking truth and holding organizations accountable is commendable. As someone sitting in the pews, earnestly seeking to grow in faith and understanding, the perspective I require is one grounded in clear evidence and truth. Claims require validation, not to silence criticism, but to discern the veracity of the issues raised. If the church has erred, that should be illuminated by incontrovertible facts, not just anecdotes or hearsay. So here we go with another illustration. For example, anyone can claim a product is harmful based on a bad experience, but without thorough evidence, such claims could unjustly damage reputations built over years. Okay, as I'm playing this back, I just want to add something real quick. Anecdotal things can absolutely paint a picture. I give you as an example, I'm someone who buys a lot of things online. I'll look at what's reasonable, amount of reviews and ratings on things. And as you begin to do that, you get a feel for what kind of people are just disgruntled and which people are, hey, we really like this product, or we don't for these reasons. Here's the pros and cons. And so it's that way. This dude, Tony, as we read further here and hear more of his comments, it's almost like he doesn't understand that it does all have to be put together, and that I'm not trying to make this case. I'm not an attorney who is going up for the trial of the century and trying to take down this church or dismantle people's faith. I would not be able to do that. But what I can do is put a bug in people's ears to say, there's a lot of information online against NTCC going way back. So let me look it over and see if testimonies across the board about this product seem to be consistent with one another. I approach this as a regular churchgoer, someone who must weigh words against personal experience and the weight of evidence. Moreover, your spiritual stance remains unclear to me. I did not see that part before. Do you still hold faith in God, or has your experience with the church influenced your belief? It's important because it shapes the context of your critique. Are you indicting the faith, the followers, or the institution? If your convictions are as deep as they seem, then concrete evidence, rather than implication, is the only way to engender a meaningful dialogue. Without it, we're left grappling with shadows and supposition. Uh, Again, I don't know how I responded to him, but my spiritual stance, that sounds like an NTCC response all the way. They will not stop and say, hey, let's look at ourselves and see what we've done over 5 decades. What matters is, what is the condition of those who are saying things about us? Stuff that's been on the internet since the internet would hold that sort of information, which for this stuff is 2003. Mr. Tony is making it clear he has no intention of doing his own searching or looking, and he wants me to say what I'm about. And it's a distraction, and no one should ever fall for it. Okay, so I answered him. I can see you are where I was not long before I left. It would be good if you could answer some of the questions I presented to you, because he hadn't heretofore answered those. And then we can proceed past all of this judgment. There's so much evidence online, and I've answered some of your questions by asking if you've read everything I've presented or listened to the videos, etc. I guess after you do, and I'm still adding each week, then you can pass judgment upon me. But you are beginning to sound like a person who sides with someone who committed a crime but no one was there to see it, and so the victim can't be taken seriously. There's no consideration given to the fact that there's probably another side to the story. There always is. It's kind of creepy, but it is the result that a cult can have on you. I know. I've been on both sides. I've been a robotic Stepford wife, a devotee of a group in place of the God they purport to serve and worship and love and obey and model their lives after. I'm here to warn and expose. I'm here to cast doubt when someone is invited to this church and they go online to look up information about New Testament Christian Church. I'm here to present as part of the evidence the words from these preachers' very own mouths. The viewing public is free to accept any part of it or none of it at all. You've clearly placed yourself in the none of it at all category. For some reason, you've chosen not to answer the questions I presented 2 nights ago. I suppose the conversation for you and I at this point ends. I wish you well, and I hope that the level of proofs you seek from me, that you also seek from this high control group that you seem blindly supportive of. Like I said, been there, done that for over 17 years. Please take care. He said to me after I wrote that same night, your vigilance and dedication to sharing your experiences are clear. Now, what he's leaving out, because he hasn't read or listened to anything else, is all the other people. Not just other people and their stories, but the words of the very preachers themselves, which I endeavor to do. I may give commentary, but I always say it's, you're free to check out the whole video and see it within context. Your vigilance and dedication to sharing your experiences are clear, and your invitation to engage with the material you've provided is understood. It is evident you've invested a lot of time in documenting your perspective and that of others. I am a video maker, content creator too, and see the challenges you face in that realm. However, as someone deeply involved in content creation, you may appreciate that time is a precious commodity. Watching hours of footage or reading extensive posts is not always feasible. What would be incredibly helpful and far more impactful is a concise summary of the concrete evidence you have, a distilled presentation, perhaps 5 minutes. 5 minutes? 5 minutes for over 50 years of abuse and extremism and high control? this is me answering him in this moment. Like, it's just, go look at his YouTube page. Just follow the at sign, and you'll see, for this person to be in a holiness church, I find it very interesting, the videos that he makes for mostly people getting married. So he wants this 5-minute concise thing, so he doesn't have to do any work, so he doesn't have to go through things and realize that all of this took time for all of us. That's maddening to me. It's really so insulting to every single person, every marriage that's been broken up, children not in touch with parents, all these things. He wants perhaps 5 minutes. Distilled presentation would allow me to understand the crux of your argument without the daunting investment of sifting through 300-ish hours of content, or however much you've posted thus far. Here's what you do, Mr. Tony. Do it a little at a time, like anything. You know, I was raised in a home where Tony likes illustrations, so he should really dig this. I was awakened early on Saturday morning. My shades were pulled up, and the mother was there. Get out of bed, it's time to clean. She was home all week. She cleaned the house within an inch of its life. We lived where you could literally eat off the floor. I bet you could eat off the toilet seat on some days, seriously. But she wanted us up, mostly because I had to clean my room. But I don't operate that way now as an adult. I learned over the years, especially while in NTCC, which robs you of your time, I learned to clean a little at a time. I work from home during the week for 9 hours a day at my computer, but if I have any moment or on my lunch break, I'm up and I'm taking care of laundry, mopping floors, wiping baseboards, whatever I have to do. So this is such a lame excuse. You either want to know or you don't. And you sound a little, it does come across a little lazy. You have mentioned a number of claims and have invited me to delve into these issues to seek answers. I am open to understanding more, but in a format that respects the time constraints we all face in our daily lives. This would also help others who may find themselves in a similar position as mine, looking for factual clarity in a sea of information, which I get, which is why, I'll say it again, this is about beginning to put content out there, so when someone is invited to this church, someone is in the church, there's enough information for them to pick and choose however they want to go about it. They can go on the blog and read an article in 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes, depending on how fast they read. They can watch a quick video short and begin to say, I wonder if there's anything else. Has anyone else ever written about this group besides this woman? And if they're really interested, then they can do that. But I've tried to warn and expose. We've tried to begin the process of letting military chaplains know across all the branches about this group, since they prey on military service members, which gets my goat to no end. It is not about passing judgment without evidence, but about seeking to understand the issues with the most substance, succinctly. He wants me to be succinct. Dude, I'm not a man, I'm a woman, and we rarely do things briefly. If there are such instances where the actions or teaching of the church clearly contradict scripture or ethical behavior, then these should be brought to light straightforwardly. Oh yeah? Okay, dude. There's stuff out there, I'm telling you, on the internet. Go look for it. Go look elsewhere. Does it bother you that Kekel said in a short, that's less than a minute, that anyone who doesn't pay their tithe is going to hell, that people are paying back tithes. Does that bother you at all? I assure you, the level of scrutiny you ask of me to apply to your claims is the same I apply to all teaching institutions, including NTCC. I don't know. You're not showing proof of that. If there is truth to be found in your assertions, it deserves to be heard and understood clearly and concisely. He wants it to be in sound bites. I wonder how old he is, because no one my age would say that. I'm 61, and I would not require anyone to fit my lifestyle. I adjust. It's sort of like people on the road. Here's another illustration. And back in the day, when I was in my metal car, which I felt much safer in, normally what you did was, if you missed a turn, you went and you put yourself out to go accommodate for it. You didn't go cut across 3 lanes of traffic to a turn lane to get to where you were hoping to go and jeopardize everyone else. Maybe it is just a generational thing that because if that's your picture, if that's Tony's picture in one of his videos, or maybe it's on the front page of his YouTube or Facebook or something where I saw it, you do look young. So maybe that's why you're happy. If you are attending Bremerton, that's a young kid in the pulpit. That's a young kid. And so maybe that's what you get there, just little sound bites and little coffee shop adventures and all the things that do not speak of a social group, but not a group that's looking to win souls for Christ and to go ye into all the world and preach the gospel. Anyway, I am so totally diverted. Okay. Then he says to me, and on a side note, I'd like to address the various labels, judgments, and assumptions that have been ascribed to me throughout our conversation. It's important for me to clarify where I stand and who I am in the midst of the discussion, which I totally get. We don't hear each other's tone through writing rather, so that can totally be missed. I mean, I would assume anyone can listen to me and get my tone, but if he hasn't listened to anything which sounds like it, he won't catch my tone at all. So he said, I am, as you've correctly noted, a regular churchgoer who values faith and community, yet I am not blindly supportive, robotic, or dismissive of the experiences of others. To imply that I support wrongdoing simply because I seek evidence before drawing conclusions is an unfair assessment of my character and approach. I think I said it reminds me of that. I won't ever say, you're this, or you're that. I learned that a long time ago in life, that that's not how you be fair with people. He goes on to say, I've not positioned myself as an adversary, nor do I aim to discount or invalidate anyone's experiences, including yours. My call for concrete evidence is not a dismissal, although, Mr. Tony, your call for concrete evidence is a 5-minute video, like MTV video, fast, concise. That's not me, and that's not what you're going to get. If you want, look at the 1-minute videos. There you go. Go for it. My call for concrete evidence is not a dismissal, but a standard practice of due diligence, just as any person seeking the truth should exercise. Your reference to a Stepford wife or a devotee of a group versus a God does not reflect my individuality or my journey of faith. My engagement in this conversation is not dictated by the church or its leaders. It is a personal endeavor to understand, to learn, and where possible, to reconcile. The questions you've posed have been noted, and while they may guide a seeker's journey, they do not encapsulate the entirety of my experience or my comprehension of faith. I respect your path and your mission to warn and expose as you see fit. In return, I ask for the same respect, to be seen not as an echo of an institution, but as an individual with the capability of critical thought and personal agency. I approach this dialogue not as a judge, but as a fellow human being, seeking clarity and truth. I trust that as we continue this exchange, we can both strive to lay aside assumptions and focus on the substantive evidence at hand. Thank you for the dialogue thus far. I look forward to your condensed presentation of the facts, which will allow me to consider your perspective more fully. Take care. Now, so he's saying, I want you to do it my way. NTCC is all about that, so I can see why he digs them totally. I look forward to your condensed presentation of the facts, which allow me to consider your perspective more fully. No, a condensed 5-minute video version does not allow you to consider anything fully. It doesn't. It's ridiculous to think you can. All right, so then I answered him. Tony, I've never once said you support wrongdoing. I was clearly making reference to... Oh my goodness, what's happening here? My screen went out. There we go. I was clearly making reference to your one-sided view of things. That's it. I tried to be sure my tone came across, which isn't easy for two people who don't know one another in person. So my apologies if you felt that way. It was not my intention. I was zooming out to focus on the broad idea of only accepting one side. If you could answer the questions I presented to you the other night, that would be helpful. Maybe beginning with the one about why you chose the section of this preacher's sermon in Lakeland, Florida, at about the 13-minute mark in the video, versus what was really the point of the message. The words he expressed at 13 minutes were meant to buttress his point. It showed forth a very common theme in NTCC. Be there each and every time the doors are open, or your dedication and faith will come immediately into question. And actually further, it will stop the blessings. Please remember that I've been where you are. How does that song go, made famous by Joni Mitchell? I've looked at life from both sides now. I've looked at NTCC from both sides now. And sir, you have not. I deeply appreciate that you've come here to respond and to hold me accountable. That is admirable, and I don't mind it and welcome it. But because you've admitted to not reading or viewing everything, and because you've not really mentioned what brought you here in the first place, I'm left wondering why you'd ask me for something that is all over the internet, not just on the platforms I've chosen to use. Google NTCC, New Testament Christian Church. Look around, explore. I'm not asking you to stay up tonight and read and listen to everything. This isn't a homework assignment, but if the attempt isn't made at all, then what would you think were you in my position? Anyway, do your own research if you're interested. And if you're not satisfied with how I'm trying to inject some information into the online mix in order to cause people to at least stop and look around and consider, and to look at the top tier of this group and to really listen to what they say, because they are this organization. NTCC and Graham, Washington, that is the model. They dictate what each outlying church must do and how they should do it. It doesn't matter if there were/are many of us who did not do things that way, and maybe that describes the group you are in. But if that's the case and you're happy where you are, then what piqued your interest to view and comment on this video? It's a curious thing. Thank you again, Tony. You seem to be just the nicest guy. I have been thankful for the dialogue that you've opened, and since you seem like someone who doesn't want their intentions taken the wrong way, most of us hate that, don't we? I've answered you, but honestly, until you can answer the basic questions I've asked, if only to yourself, then what's the point of it at all? Read, listen, watch, observe, ask questions about this group and what has been presented here and elsewhere, and see what their answers are. Is it the standard that anyone saying anything against them are bitter and haters and losers and they left God because they left our group and they're whiners and need healing, etc., ad nauseum. NTCC has been giving those type of reasons for years and years and years and decades and years and months and days and hours and minutes, that it's almost laughable because it's so predictable. But to those who left with a real heartache and those who have been shunned by family and friends, this is no laughing matter. And side note, since I wrote this, go look at what's his name? In Fausto's video that I just posted about mark them and avoid them. Is shunning biblical in that way? Go see what he said and what he refers to in Scripture for that. It's okay with him if families are apart and good friends are apart because of this organization. Have you asked your pastor about that? If he is the young Cardenas in Bremerton, who I recall wandering into a children's church class back when his parents arrived at the school, and so how old can he be? This group is all he has ever known. It's the saddest thing to me. He has nothing to offer. Ask him what happens when someone leaves. Ask him if he knows how many marriages have been broken up. Ask about how many remarriages there are, and ask if they're allowed to marry outside of the group, and ask if folks like the Kinsons haven't shown up at someone's door to encourage a spouse to not follow the other one out of the group. Where else do you see this happening in real life? Let's see. What comes to mind are Scientologists, JWs, the Amish are awesome at shunning. I've been in other churches after getting saved and before meeting up with NTCC in the Philippines. And if I ever left or moved on, people stayed in touch and wished me well and didn't try to break up my marriage or anything. I exhort you to be brave enough to ask the questions. Why did Kekel say in his own words in the video short I posted that anyone who doesn't pay tithe is going to hell? Why? Why are people paying back tithes? Why in the world did I pay back tithes when I was in the Air Force? Why? Why? Why do grown men and women have to ask permission to sit on a wall as spectacles in front of others and not be allowed to talk outside of that time? No phone, no writing, no nothing, and get married with only about a day's worth of knowledge of one another? Why? Why? Why have family members and Graham had to ask permission to fellowship with one another, those outside of the Bible school? Because they will use the rules of the school as a reason in some cases. Why are local churches outside of Graham treating people the same way, laying burdens upon people, heavy, heavy burdens? This isn't a joke. I'm not a bitter person. I'm someone who believes this is an unhealthy business organization. They use the Bible as a way to lure people in. And they prey upon the military and they try to get them inside their creepy servicemen's communal homes. They place burdens of time upon them, encourage them not to fulfill their daily military duties, telling them that God's work is more important. Hey, these folks signed up for the military and they have an obligation to fulfill. NTCC wants butts and seats and money flowing. Ask them why. Why are they so irresponsible to erect buildings to use as churches and then demand money from the congregants to pay for it all? That reminds me of moms who I knew growing up in the Northeast who would guilt their children into doing what they wanted by saying things like, I was in labor for 48 hours with you, suffering. You owe me. Hey, lady, that's on you, not me. It's also on NTCC, not unsuspecting church members, to deal with the financial issues if they fall short. Davis and Kekel have taught that NTCC and the work of God are a business. If you want more money, you get more people. Davis used to teach, if you want what I have, then do what I do, which mostly is about real estate. Look up the Kekels online and see if they aren't officers in several for-profit LLCs. They have a commune up in Graham, and people pay them rent to live in their homes. That's their jam. Ask your pastor if the Kekels have ever gone out and started a church work from scratch. And if not, then why not? That dude Kekel has a lot to say to folks who are actually doing it when he has never done it himself. He derides and humiliates them. These people are hypocrites, those in leadership. And they're conspicuous liars, too. Maybe go look on LinkedIn and ask why Kinson has listed that he holds a bachelor's degree from when he graduated, quote, unquote, from the NTCC school. He's high up in the leadership and he's on LinkedIn. Why? And he's a liar promoting himself falsely, as the leader and founder of NTCC did as well. Are you okay with that? Kinson isn't the only one either. Many preachers in NTCC misrepresent themselves like that. The school is not an accredited thing. It's busy work, a way to indoctrinate and keep people busy and not asking questions. Hey, ask them how they feel about being questioned. If you do that, you will be a marked man. You might be already just for showing up here. I hope so. I hope as a result they try to run you off as they have others for doing far less. They have tried to make a problem for people because their family members and friends have left the group. And they've left comments online through the years or written on FactNet. Why is that? Why is that a problem for NTC? But seriously, this is not a joke. There is a trail of broken, messed up lives because of involvement with this group, and especially those who are second generation, raised knowing nothing but this group. They couldn't be more out of touch with life and reality. It's easier to say it's an extremist group or authoritarian or high control, but it is a cult and it exhibits all the signs. Do your research on that. Listen to the services in Graham, most especially Graham, and see what's what. Convince yourself either way, but do it for yourself. Thank you. The video for the pastor is same video. There's still more comments. My daughter 10 days ago said, so disgusting, I literally can't finish this video. Another person, Tina Michelle, said, I think I've said what about 20 times while I was watching this. Okay, so 11 days ago, under that comment video. Dear Tracy, I found your article on the courtship practices within NTCC to be an intriguing read. You raised several concerning points about how relationships are fostered within the organization. However, I couldn't help but wonder about the evidence that substantiates your claims. While you vividly describe the experience at the wall, have you considered gathering testimonials or empirical data that validate this being a widespread practice rather than an anecdotal experience? Also, you touch upon the cultural and racial diversity among couples as a downside, but isn't it also possible that this diversity could be seen as a strength by some? I still don't know where he got that from. Could this experience not foster a more global, inclusive Christian community? I appreciate your attention to this issue. Would love to hear more about your research methods and findings to better understand the depth of the problem you're addressing. Looking forward to your response. I wrote back to him, are you someone in the group? Because if you're not, then I can assure you that every single person who has ever been to Graham, Washington to attend the school knows about the wall. Anyone who has ever been to a church conference at the campground in Missouri knows about the wall. I'm sure I could dredge up folks to give their stories, but it's not necessary. It's why no one dares to come online and claim it doesn't exist. It's a part of the whole control structure which is propped up by many pillars, and one is the permission pillar. Grown adults asking for permission to go grocery shopping or to speak to someone they're interested in, and similar activities that the rest of us can enjoy free of cult oversight. The wall is not anecdotal in the way that NTCC only using the KJV version of the Bible is not anecdotal, or the fact that they believe you have to pay tithes and back tithes or you go to hell is not anecdotal. Also, I've never ever once said anything about the cultural diversity of couples as being a downside, so not sure where you got that from. It's actually one of the things I liked about this group. I don't like that they have a very high rate of divorce and that the preachers at all levels encourage separation of marriages, and then they have a new and improved spouse waiting to try out in the wings, something which is also not anecdotal but a part of the fiber of this group. What is the reason for finding interested in what I'm presenting? I see that your business, if you are the representative of this production company, is based in Washington State. Do you know any of the group followers or leaders? Thank you. He said, thank you for your prompt reply and for further elaborating on your points. I appreciate your clarification about the positive view you hold on the cultural diversity within NTCC. Yeah, I misunderstood your mention of differing races, cultures, and nationalities as a negative factor on your blog post, and I'm glad to hear that you see it as one of the positive aspects of the group. On the topic of the wall, while I understand it's a known entity within the NTCC community, my question about additional evidence was aiming to bolster the credibility of your argument for those unfamiliar with the organization's practices. And to that I say, go ask. Provide some in fact, if someone has never been to NTCC and they were to read this and read anything I've said or Tony questioning it, all they have to do when they get to the serviceman's home or a church is ask, hey, I read something online that there's a wall or something when you courtship. Is that true? That's all you got to do. Ask a question. But guess what? Questions. They want them no está en casa. To provide some context, I've been attending New Testament Christian Church for just over a year. And while I don't personally know the leaders, I do follow them on Facebook. I'm interested in your articles because they offer an alternate perspective on a community that I'm still getting to know. That said, while I find your insights informative, it might be beneficial to focus on presenting a well-rounded view, making sure that the arguments aren't solely rooted in emotional experiences but are balanced with evidence. I don't know what he calls the videos of words coming out of the mouths of the preachers themselves. I don't think he has watched a single one then. He also watched the one about the dude down in Florida. You have anything to say about what he said from his very, very mouth? Blah, blah, blah. This would make your critiques even more compelling and accessible to those both inside and outside the NTCC community. Looking forward to your continued insights, and thank you again for opening this line of dialogue. And so I said, you're very welcome. Thank you for being so pleasant. I take your criticism to heart. Though I wrote about this group when I first left in 2006, I can tell you that it is both an emotional and factual journey. I'm emotionally driven right now and that I want to keep military members away and help those who have gotten out by assuring them they are not alone in what they experienced and what lies ahead for them as the progress away from the harm they caused to individuals, as they progress away from the harm that was caused to individuals and families. I'm not coming at this from a professional point of view, meaning I have no intention of being slick and polished, but I do want it to make sense, thereby helping to raise doubts. It's about raising doubts. That's what it's about. This is not evidence gathered for a court presentation before a jury. You have to have all your ducks lined up in a row. This is, I want there to be doubt. And I want people to be brave enough to ask questions, Mr. Tony. Go ask some questions. Hey, when your peeps over there go to Graham on a Thursday night, go with them. Go ask Keckle. Go ask Kenton. Hey, can I ask you some questions about some things I've seen online? I bet I could tell you what they'll say. When one is involved in a cult, especially a church cult such as NTCC, they get you in by using the truth that most people believe, the Bible, the King James Version no less. They sing old-timey hymns and repetitive phrases in order to create... Oh, what's happening? In order to create... Sorry, my screen keeps minimizing. I think because I didn't use it. They sing old-timey hymns and repetitive phrases in order to create an atmosphere whereby people will comply. A lot of churches use this technique. The Charismatics are also very good at it, but the Pentecostals paved the way. Each one of us who was suckered into this group came and stayed for a myriad of reasons. It's not all cut and dry and easy to lay out in a presentation format. The quietness from the group on these individual matters is a huge proof, if we can go ahead and use that word proof. So whereas you're looking for proof via testimonies and whatnot, I can tell you that I'm not going to solicit any of that from anyone. Most that I know have been through a lot, and some through hell and back. It would be a mockery to me to even think of subjecting them to that. You have no idea how difficult it was for Monica to offer to do some interviews. She's been out of the group for over 5 years. Do you know how many people cannot and will not speak out for fear of breaking up relationships that are important to them? Do you know how many fear being known, at least their loved ones and friends, be treated differently were the leadership to get wind of it? Anyone who has left comments has done it on their own, and I've not asked anyone to do that. Not everyone is looking to be vocal, and they've moved on, and though they look in and are interested because they want to see this place leave people alone and to finally have zero influence, that's all they're willing to do. Few feel compelled to write and expose. It's a huge investment of time and emotions and of dredging up a past of regrets and guilt that they'd rather let lie. Many would love to be interviewed in order to further lend credence to my words, but they can't. So many lives, both of folks in and out of this group, are intertwined. That is incredibly sad to me. They've been shunned and treated like scum. There are moms and dads and sisters and brothers and aunts and close friends who have been shunned by the group because they left. And NTCC considers that leaving God. Mike Keckel and the founder, R.W. Davis, said over and over again that those who leave NTCC have left God and are the enemies of the group. And you don't have to take my word for that. Just watch the services from Graham, or maybe pick a random NTCC church and watch one of their live stream services. You know who shuns those who leave their groups? Cults do, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, Scientology, the Amish, fringe groups, of which NTCC is one. Groups with peculiar pet doctrines that are not found anywhere in the Bible. So I would say look and listen. If the wall wasn't a thing, there would be folks leaving comments all over the place, denying it and calling me every evil name in the book. Some do anyway, and they make reference to no subject at all. LOL. Were shunning not a thing, there would be defenders of this organization writing en masse, claiming that it's not a thing and that I'm lying. I hope that will help you a bit. Sometimes the deafening silence speaks volumes, way more than words. Again, I'm just someone who has felt compelled to do my part to draw attention to this group by mostly using their own words in the videos, so as to raise doubt in the minds of those considering leaving, currently attending, or thinking of going to a service. My content is meant to be mixed along with everything else on the internet about this group, including the fringe folks who broke off from them in 2003, House of Prayer Christian Church. Anyone who reads about them will see the tactics they learned from Davis in NTCC. Keckel said recently in a morning conference teaching that this, NTCC and their activities, is a business. The leadership wants to see results, like any corporation hawking products, and results are measured in NTCC in butts and seats, hands in wallets pulling out money, the purchasing of church buildings, which they highly value above any lost soul. Again, watch their live streams. It's all there. And preying upon unsuspecting military souls to get them to leave all and go to their silly school in Graham, Washington. All I can do is what I can do. As I said in a video yesterday, it's all meant to be consumed together, not piecemeal. I'm here to throw doubt, to cause people to do their own research. Each person has to be convinced on their own, and that comes by checking all sources. Listen to their videos, scrutinize them, look for the common themes, money, buildings, how they view those who leave their church group, and compare that to what happens when a person leaves, say, the Baptist church or the Methodist church. Take what I write and feel free to question me if you'd like. I have nothing to hide. My concern is for people to not become entangled with this high control extremist church cult. I'm more than happy to answer questions, and if there's something I don't know, I'll try to find the answer. But I'm telling you, there's a gold mine of information lying within all of the videos of all of the churches in this organization. There's a point when each person has to do their own research, come to their own conclusions. Thank you, and I looked at your videos. They are very cool. Not very outward holiness, but keep giving those tithes, and it will hopefully overlook a multitude of sins. Then Mr. Tony wrote back to me, thank you for your in-depth reply. I appreciate the emotional and factual journey you've been through. However, that's his middle name, Mr. Tony, however. As someone who's only been a part of NTCC for just over a year, my experience has been quite positive. I've grown personally and spiritually in ways I couldn't have imagined. Um, that said, I want to keep an open mind and understand all sides. Can you provide concrete events, documents, or other forms of evidence that support your claims, particularly concerning the church encouraging marital separations and specific tithing doctrines? He hasn't seen one video. He hasn't looked at one thing. It's crucial for me to have a well-rounded view based on tangible evidence, especially when the allegations are as serious as the ones you're making. I have the utmost respect for your intentions, and I'm keen to understand the full picture. My daughter answered Tony and said 10 days ago, I understand your need for evidence. Some things just aren't tangible. Davis used to use, wait, what? How is this my daughter? And she wrote this sentence like this. Oh, right. He used to use classes and sermons to get to people. Up until after he died, that wasn't videoed or written down. All we have now is word from those that were in. And how many people that are in, I'm going to say this as a side note, people like me, the first things we did was pitched all of our school notes. And for someone like me who had shorthand, I got every word. In fact, I remember a time when Reverend DiFrancesco was checking notes, and he was looking through mine, and he had called you. A lot of people who were there in the 90s will remember this, like the early 90s. He would talk about, remember Dr. Dean Adele on the radio? He's a pretty liberal dude, I think, if I remember correctly, and John DiFrancesco referred to him as Dr. Dean Adele, which I found very humorous at the time. I'm sure I was laughing as I wrote it. And I put it in my notes. I was a new student. I didn't know. Got every word. I put every word in. Minimum was 3 pages of notes. I always got 20 or more because I got every word. I had to really learn to pare it down. But he came through. He looked through and he saw that and he asked me to remove it. And now, all these decades later, I think, why? Why remove that? Like, I wonder how much they'd want to remove when they read things that were taught in Olson's class or Keckel's class, that Davis was the first man up before the throne of God. All these things that they're sitting in people's notes somewhere. People who are still in, if they even kept it with all the moves. We did. We moved with all of our notes. Ask them, dare them. I dare people in NTCC, preachers who were around in the 90s, in the 80s, in the early 2000s, pull out those notes from Davis. But were you too afraid to write it down? Did you write it down? Did you write those things down? Did you write down what the man of God, first up before the throne of God, didn't you want to get every single word he said? I remember one brother in a class, he would shake his whole table of brothers sitting there with him because he was writing furiously. And I look back on that and I think, that's someone who believes in what they're involved in is something important. I wanted every word. I thought it was important. It's there. But I don't think there'll be anybody whipping out their notes anytime soon to prove my words or to prove anyone else's words. Prove Vicky Johansson wrong. Prove Monica wrong. Go ahead. Try it. They don't because they can't. They're not out here denying anything because they don't want any of us to say more than we have already based on what we know. I'm telling you. Anyway, she said, some may still have Bible school notes, but I can tell you as someone who grew up in the church that everything on this channel and on the blog is factual. I'll pass a polygraph if asked about this place. There are definitely good moments, and if you've experienced something life-changing, I'm so happy for you. But don't get more involved with them, please. Get what you need and keep going. Okay. This person, see, I don't know if I saw this one. I don't think so. I didn't hit a thumbs up on it. Or my daughter. I hadn't read it. Okay. So this person at correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. They address Mr. Tony and say physical evidence is very important, and there is a lot in the videos posted here. However, testimonials also should not be taken lightly. The wall reference applies to Bible school students and graduates, or church members who are courting these two groups. For students, permission to court is granted only by the school president, and they're only given approximately 1 hour to talk on Sunday nights at the fellowship hall in Graham. Once the pastor says good night, couples are expected to stop talking until the next week. These restrictions are justified by telling the students, it's not a bridal school. That's right. It's a Bible school. It's supposedly to avoid distractions so the students can focus on school. The Bible doesn't speak well of those who make a practice of forbidding to marry, 1 Timothy 4:1. They would say they don't violate that scripture because they wouldn't tell two Christians not to marry. But hindering two Christians from getting to know each other is in fact forbidding them to marry. It's like someone saying, no one is stopping you from driving my car, but then they don't give you the keys. I personally experienced the wall, and it was nerve-wracking and humiliating. Oh, I'm sorry for that. Very sorry. I'm so glad I was married before I came in. So glad, because my heart went out. Just went out. This person wrote, this is Jen K31, 3 days ago. I was on the wall late 90s. Davis was traveling a lot during this time, and sometimes it seemed like a month or more would go by before we could speak. We didn't know each other when we married. No one who experienced the wall did. How can you know someone well enough to marry them after only speaking a handful of times under such tightly controlled circumstances? I married my wall partner after pressure from above to marry me off. The leaders' wives were starting to throw names of older ministers out to me, touting that one of them would make a good husband because he had money. Oh my goodness. These women, they went around doing this stuff, not just to these, I don't know how old Jen was back in the 90s, but my daughters, I think I mentioned it, when they were 11, 12, 13, they had Olson's wife, Gail, talking in their ear, and other of the women. That's what Davis's wife did. She went around encouraging women to get wigs and encouraging women to make herself look better for these certain brethren. It's really, it's icky. It's so icky and weird and cultish. I married my wall partner after pressure from above to marry me off. The leaders' wives were starting to throw names of older ministers out to me, touting that one of them would make a good husband because he had money. The man I chose ended up being a bad choice anyway. Thank God I've escaped all that mess. They are controlling, manipulative, and deceptive. Unfortunately, due to the nature of groups like these, people don't often see that side of them until they are in deep, and by then it's hard to find your way out. There's a lot of brainwashing you have to get through. Is dating allowed now? Do they still have the wall? Then this other person wrote, I think more interviews would be cool. The Nika interviews were incredible, and I totally agree with that. I think there's only one other person I offered I offered only one person that if they were interested in an interview, I would do it. Anyone else, I would want them to say to me, um, you know, I'm interested. There's a lot of people that just can't because of their situation. Um, I think I'm gonna stop right now, and I'll mark where I left off. It's just getting long. By the time I edit this and put it together and put it up, I'll be definitely taking advantage of my day off. I appreciate you all listening, and we'll see how it goes. If this will work, it will work. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's interesting because even after looking on my YouTube dashboard, I found at least 3 comments while reading these I hadn't seen before. Anyway, have a great rest of your weekend. To my fellow veterans, I wish you a happy Veterans Day. And good night.